Okay. Takes you a while to get up.
Okay, it is 6:02 PM on Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. We'll call the common council meeting to order. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Weigel.
Here.
Varga.
Here.
Middleton.
Here.
Crowder.
Here.
Romano.
Present.
In front of you are the minutes from our last meeting, which was on June 28th. June 28th. Are there any changes or corrections?
I do not.
Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dan, seconded by Jenny. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. Jenny, Tad, Dan, and Walt approve.
Abstain.
And Jennifer abstains. Next up is Tom for a swearing-in ceremony.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce everybody to Felicity Clausen. She will be our, she is our first full-time female firefighter for the city of Columbia City, and she's doing a great job. She's gotten through her entire book and that we have our new trainees go through. Felicity, I'm sorry, that alarm says you no longer get the job. I'm kidding. But yeah, Felicity Clausen, everybody.
Come on up.
Terry's
I
know. She's doing a 100-yard dash.
I, Felicity Clausen,
I, Felicity Clausen,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a Columbia City firefighter
as a Columbia City firefighter
of the City of Columbia City,
of the City of Columbia City,
according to the law,
according to the law,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
By the way, Fee rescued a dog today. I don't know, it was kind of a hair-raising event when Zach Gardner told her to push down on the footrest of this chair, and I'm watching this, and she goes, whoom, and just slams it down. Not the way you want to do typically rescue something from a
That's not what
mechanical
happened.
piece of equipment.
This is not what happened.
Thank you, congratulations, thanks to all family and friends that showed up for tonight. If you want to sit through the rest of our meeting, you're free to do that, or you can certainly head out, it's up to you, but thank you, everybody, appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I may have exaggerated that story.
Tom flew out and hit the wall. Knocked it unconscious.
Okay, next up is ordinance 2022-24. Excuse me. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Tad. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous. Please read ordinance number 2022-24 by title only.
Ordinance 2022-24, City of Columbia City, Indiana, an ordinance establishing an arts commission for the City of Columbia City, Indiana.
So as you all know, this has been kind of a bit of a passion project for me to establish an arts commission here in the city. I've been working with multiple individuals, but mainly the State Arts Commission, to really kind of get some information from them as to how these are set up in other cities and towns across the state of Indiana. The opportunity to not only help support and enrich the arts here in our community, but also certainly provide an opportunity and a vehicle for potential grant funding to expand the arts in our community. As you'll notice, this is a brand new commission, if you will. I set this up very much like many of the other communities are set up. Mainly Bloomington and Fort Wayne were the two real, I think, good samples, if you will, because they have a pretty good thriving arts community in both of those communities. I also did pattern the membership sort of after kind of in the balance, if you will, after the redevelopment commission and the tree board and the other kind of groups that we have in that regard. Pretty clear, obviously the goal really is to support, it's not to supplant or take over. By no means this is really a way to help support the arts in our community and the arts. Public art, there you see the definitions under Article 2, Section B1. It defines public art, which including but not limited to visual, musical, dramatic, and any other aesthetic work that's accessible to the general public. And again, it's the board is made up, the commission is made up of 7 members, 4 of those selected by myself or whoever the sitting mayor is, with at least one of those members actively involved in an arts-related group or organization. None of those positions can be filled by myself or any city staff members. 3 members would be selected by the Common Council. 2 of you, if you wanted, could fill those positions, or certainly you could decide to select all 3 from outside of the board, outside of the council. The members have to be within the city boundaries or within the city's jurisdictional area. Typically that's the 2-mile jurisdiction, although we're not quite at 2 miles on every side. We're working on that. But obviously have that Columbia City focus. Certainly could serve, I think, outside of the city boundaries, but the residents themselves have to come from within that area. Community Development Director may serve as an ex officio member, but doesn't get voting power. And then I also, with the help of Marcia, we kind of set up the staggered terms, so as it would get started, we would have staggered terms so that going forward, we would always have appointments that would be up at different times, so you don't have a wholesale change of the board at one time or another. Again, this is exactly how many of our other boards and commissions are set up. Meetings, again, just kind of going through this a little bit because it's a new commission, but meetings are set up very similar to every other board, but written minutes have to be kept for each meeting and submitted to the clerk, so there's a record of that. I also put in there that once a year at a minimum, the first quarter of each calendar year, the Arts Commission shall, meaning they have to, come in front of you as the city council to kind of give a report on their previous year's activities. So that keeps them engaged with you all in some way, shape, or form. Again, assuming that there may or may not be people on this council that would be on the Arts Commission. And then I gave a dissolution, meaning that if the Arts Commission needs to be dissolved, there's ways of doing that. And I would say there's not all of our boards and commissions we've had in the past have that, like, wait, is it dissolved? Is it not? It's kind of a limbo kind of status, if you will, so I tried to put that in there as well. In general, that's the kind of setup and the makeup of the Arts Commission. Again, you know that I'm very passionate about this, and we've seen in our community, we've seen especially the visual arts, but also the dramatic arts and music really start to come alive. COVID kind of put a little damper on that, but it seems to be growing again. So this is just another way in which the city can support the efforts of many private and nonprofit individuals to really grow the arts in our community. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Jennifer?
It's not a question. I'd just
Okay.
like to say that I also share in the passion about this, and you and I have had a lot of conversations about it over time. And really the emphasis on elevating the arts in our community is something that has been in the works for a long time.
Sure.
Our community in the past hasn't been maybe as supportive as it could be. So starting a commission like this and putting some emphasis on that, I think is important for every kid in the community whose thing is art of some form or another. Creating of this commission is also really important because we've looked into doing public art here before, like having some of the different kinds of statues and things that you see in other communities like Warsaw or
Decatur.
Decatur. Like I recently went to Decatur's unveiling of their stuff and looking into it more fully, like we just couldn't afford to do it unless we set something up like this and are able to start getting contributions for it. So this is really exciting and very positive, and
Thanks,
I'm
Jen.
super excited about it.
Thanks, and that actually spurred one other thing that I put in here that I didn't mention, but again, it's in the ordinance, but this ordinance would also create a fund called the Public Arts Fund that would be a donation fund that would be held by the clerk's office, if you will, and that would be a scenario where the city council could take funds from their budget and put it into that donation fund, and it doesn't revert back to the general fund. It could also be a place where we accept grant-type dollars, and it also gives an ability for the Arts Commission to actually create their own fund in a nonprofit. So for instance, if they wanted to go to the Community Foundation, they could go and create a arts fund there as well to accept for 501c3 purposes or for non-tax deduction type purposes, so. Yes,
Question.
yes, Walt.
Mayor, on the 3 members selected by common council.
Yes.
The process of that, do you want that to be turned into you or turned into me and then I give it to you, or?
My suggestion would be, and again, it is, I left it vague just to kind of figure out the best way you all want to do it, but I would assume it's the same general premise as what you do for redevelopment commission or tree board, which is,
Okay.
you know, either the council president or whoever can kind of come up with a list, or the council members can bring individuals up, and the decision by the council of who those 3 individuals would be, again, would be effectively voted on in this board, just like we do lots of other appointments.
So this is the first reading, so we still have time to work on the roster of
Yeah.
candidates.
Yeah.
So I think we can work on that together. Just submit to me your recommendations. If it's yourself, obviously put yourself down. Again, there's a lot of people with tons of talent and ideas. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Walt, and Marcia has piqued my interest.
I
in
know,
here.
and this is my fault. You gave me this, and I just put it in here, but I'm now noticing that there's an error.
Okay.
So if you look at 4.02G2,
G2.
we've got 4 members. So what do you want? 2 members with 4-year terms and 2 members with 3-year terms, and there's only going to be 3 council appointments.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And I
Okay.
just put in what you gave me, and I need to change that. What's your preference?
I think I would rather do 2 on the 4-year terms and 1 on the 3-year term, only because I only have 1 on a 4-year term. So that would put 3.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's good. So
So-
everybody, just so you know, the next one will be under 4.02G2. Wait, which one are we changing?
Yeah, so 2 members for 4-year terms and 1 member for 3-year terms.
1 member for the 3-year term.
Does that make sense under the council appointments? Okay. Other questions? Thank you for that catch, Marcia. I missed that.
Will it be up to the commission then to set up the nonprofit status or pass-through account with the community foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's fantastic, because then businesses or individuals can make tax-deductible contributions to
Absolutely.
this.
Community.
So we're going to, as we work through this, and if it passes, we'll go to immediate approval.
So it doesn't have to be. My preference is that we have the terms and the board members filled out by the end of the year. So we don't have to have the membership ready to go at the next meeting, which I'm assuming would be the second reading of this ordinance. But my preference would be we have this filled out by the end of the year so that we can really get started. So
Is
Jennifer.
it feasible to have it even before say December because I know that's the end of a grant.
Gotcha.
Traditionally.
I mean, I think it is. I think it is. It's really gonna be up to, you know, what members you all, what 3 members you want to appoint and all that kind of stuff. I'm fairly confident I can have my 4 members in place by then. Yeah. I've already asked one, so.
With the open door, it's gonna be tough for all of us to talk at the same time at the same place.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, at the end of the day, I don't think that there's, I would just say as the president of the council, I would just say you accept names from individuals, or, you know, certainly 2 of you can talk at one time, or whatever the case is.
Okay.
But yeah, and again, you have to create the Arts Commission before we can appoint people to it. But like I said, I kind of already said, hey, if this passes, I'd like you to serve. So nevertheless, I do think that, yeah, if we want to try to get it together, I mean, even having it in place for November probably would be good. But again, that's all going to be dependent on getting the people who we want to appoint to that and getting them organized so that they're ready to meet. So,
And I'll communicate by email as well,
Okay.
and that way we can keep a chain. Thank you.
okay. Anything else, or any other questions about the Arts Commission? I don't want to rush through this by any means. I think it's a cool thing. I'm very passionate about. Obviously, Jennifer's passionate about, but I also don't want to, you know, squash any conversation. Okay. Then can I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-24 on first reading?
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Dan. Further discussion? All those in favor show by the usual sign. It is unanimous. We'll move that to second reading at the next meeting. Thank you very much. Okay. So I know many of you walked in as we were giving department head reports. I don't know if you want everyone to give department head reports or just go back to the people you didn't hear, or what you want to do in that regard, but,
I know I heard everybody from Tom on down,
okay.
Same.
but I'd like Chip to do his again, because it was fascinating.
I think you missed out on the RDC. We are, real quick, I'll interject just to give everybody time to recoup. We are getting ready, we put together a committee for RDC to do a RFP on the Line Street from Jackson.
Oh, cool.
So,
That's what he was gonna do.
I wasn't there.
yeah, that's why,
That was
that was just for Ted, so.
You had to carry him again?
It was a productive meeting today.
Thank goodness I'm light.
Okay, so, Dan?
I walked in when Gary was giving his.
Okay, so let's start with Mike Shota and go the opposite way then.
I said that we just finished the storm drain that we had to put in at Westgate. And next week, we're gonna start the storm drain on Dogwood to take care of that problem where that builder has caused a puddle. So, that's it.
Questions of Mike?
I knew Mike would be quick.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Thomas?
7 years ago. I'm kidding.
That's all.
The bad news, I'm gonna just, like I told the Board of Works, I'll break out the bad news first, and then it gets better from there. 102 failed pump test.
Oh.
What that really gets to is it can't be used right now as a fire engine. We can use it for the rescue tools until we get it figured out what's going on with it. Our company that we use to do our repairs has contacted the pump manufacturer and First Class that makes the governor portion, the electronic portion of that. Trying to figure out what our fail points could be on this so that we know where to begin fixing it. I have no idea what the cost is gonna be. It could be anywhere from a couple, $200-300 to thousands at this point, so tens of thousands. So I'll keep you posted, it's the best I can do. Interviews went very well. We had 2 candidates get past the interviews that the fire department did. Jennifer was a part of those interviews. I think we have 2 very, very good candidates we're passing on to the Board of Works for interviews. Pretty big thing for us because the last several hiring processes we've done, we got one candidate that got to this point. So to get two really good candidates is a big deal. So really happy about that. Took a training in Angola last week on Wednesday. Their EMA had sent something to the mayor that sent something to Gary and I. There were police agencies represented from all over the state of Indiana. It was an incredible training. It really came down to, it was focused on incident command. It was probably one of the top 10 trainings I've taken so far in my time. So really glad I went to that. Gary and I attended a training at the Peabody Library a couple weeks ago. I wish Terry and Shane Caudell had went to that in lieu of us, because it was more focused into the radios and information technology portion of things, and Gary and I really kind of felt out of place that day. It wasn't about the tactics and things like. Speaking for me. We spoke, buddy. But yeah, it was. If it comes to, I remember this happened. They had another one of these several years ago that they put on. I think the next time these happen, I think I am going to pass it on to Terry and Shane, hopefully, and Matt, and send them to it, because it would have been a great training for somebody to attend it if they would have been more in that field. So other than that, as I said to the Board of Works, I don't know if all of you heard that, I will be making a presentation to the Board of Works about getting out of doing pool fills. Not that we don't want to do them anymore, I just don't think it's advantageous for the city at this point for us to continue doing those, for multiple reasons, and I'll present that later on at a different date, so.
Question of Tom. Thank you. Terry?
SOS installed 2 new switches today that were damaged by storms, one at the Water Pollution Control Facility and one at the MSF. They are in the process right now of replacing one out at the water tower, our south water tower, so these were all damaged in the last storm that we went through, so hopefully after they get done this evening, everything will be up to snuff and back to running quickly and properly. That's all I have for major projects.
Questions of Terry? Thank you. Mike?
During the Board of Works meeting, I got approval to work with both Columbia City High School, which we have in the past as an intern program. I had the opportunity to have a student from Whitco also. So we're going to see if we can't work with, or if I can't work with both school systems this year for an internship. I was waiting on an email back. I haven't got that this evening, so I'll be putting that together in the next couple of days. I met with Midwestern engineers over the CSO 19 project at the treatment plant. Went over 50% design, added some ideas, took some things out that they had. So when they come back, and then we're working towards a engineer's estimate on that project. And I've also reviewed conceptual drawings for the Force Main project with Donahue. They've completed the hydraulic analysis on both stations. There's a few issues there that we may have to replace a pump at each one of them, but we're not sure yet on which way we're going to go there. And just regular maintenance.
Questions of Mike? Thank you. Kelly?
We've had a crew out working in trimming limbs back and hanging into the alleys and the streets before school starts. We kind of wanted to get that stuff cut back so buses aren't getting hit with limbs and hearing from them. So we've had a crew working on that between our regular monthly limb pickup, and then we've had some concrete projects that's popped up that we've had to do. So we're trying to finish the east side up on that here probably this week. And then we had a small concrete project we did on South Oak Street at Vine Street. And then, Mayor, I didn't know if you wanted to bring up the Patriotic Park monument or wait on that, or.
I mean, we can, yeah, sure. So
We poured a foundation down at Patriotic Park to set a memorial on it for veterans, peacetime and wartime veterans memorial. And we had help from some of the park guys when that came in to set it down there. Me and 2 of our guys and then 2 of their guys helped out. But it looks really nice. And
we'll be having a kind of a formal ceremony at some point in the near future. My guess is I'm debating on whether to wait till Veterans Day or maybe before. I'm just trying to figure out when the right time is to do that. But yeah, appreciate Kelly and Mark working on that, and Smith and Sons has helped us with the actual monument piece. So yeah, it's gonna be a nice thing. So told Cleon about that already, by the way.
Okay.
Questions of Kelly?
Other than that,
Yeah.
my, Kevin Searball is retiring this Friday from the street department, so I think Beth's gonna have a little get-together out at the MSF at 12:30, from 12:30 to 1:30, so anybody wants to stop out, more than welcome.
How many years?
I think he's got 28, something like that. Yeah.
Questions? Okay, Jennifer, you're next on my list.
All right. So this is something that has been a topic of discussion now for years. I'll just jump right into it. Chickens in the city. And
Love that movie.
or we could just call it city chickens. We have taken this to ordinance committee, and the ordinance committee is really not interested in moving forward with it as an ordinance committee. However, there are several of us who are interested in moving forward with this as elected officials representing people in our community who want to be able to have chickens in the city. We've done a lot of background work on this. Jenny's also been involved in this as far as looking into the listservs of other ordinances that exist in other municipalities that have allowed chickens in the city. Also, at one point I had an intern pull up a lot of information about that, and we watched South Whitley's process go through, and it just seems like it's time to talk about it, especially with the economy the way it is and people wanting to take responsibility for their own food that they're producing in their homes. Again, I think it's very possible to make this something that's not irritating to neighbors. An issue that continually gets brought up about this, well, actually there's two. The noise, if we just say you can't have roosters in the city, okay, that kind of takes care of that. And then the other one is about pests, and you know, we can of course like make it part of it that you have to have storage for the feeds and stuff like that, but really we've talked about it and it's not much different than dog food. Like pests can get into that too, so there's going to be people that are for it and against it, and I think it's time that we have a public discussion about it, so commence the discussion.
So, yeah, so obviously, council members, our chapter 90 of our ordinance is the animal ordinance. And, you know, I know previous councils have discussed that. I don't think this council specifically has discussed this issue. Again, I think, as Jennifer and I have talked about this before, just trying to figure out where you all want to go with this, and more specifically, you know, is it something that you want to have some kind of an ordinance drafted up? What are your thoughts and opinions initially? What information do you need? Things like that. So my assumption is we have at least one, maybe two people in the audience that have an interest in this topic of some sort. But I am curious as to kind of where you want to go with this.
Well, the last time it was brought up, I got more phone calls against chickens than for chickens. And I had quite a few phone calls, so I was looking at it as what the people were calling me on, was more against it. A lot of it comes down, there's so many different breeds of chickens. There's so many different breeds, like dogs. You got different types of dogs, you got different types of chickens, you got, you know, and okay, and who polices it? Is that something that we have to add on to our police department, that if there's calls, you know, we always get calls on chickens, or dogs, you know, we gotta get calls on chickens, and then we got, and just keep multiplying. Like I say, I guess, you know, I understand the need for how they feed their chickens, the type of eggs they get, I get that, but I'm thinking for $1.50 or $2, I get a whole dozen out the grocery store. By the time you put a $200 or $300 chicken coop in, plus feed, plus the chickens, you know, I could buy quite a few dozen eggs for what it cost me to put up a chicken coop and stuff. And I think, you know, you gotta look at the square footage of the grounds that some of these people have. You know, if they got a yard big enough for chickens versus, because some of our houses are awfully close together. And that creates issues with dogs and everything else that we got going on. So, you know, there's a number of issues that come up when you bring chickens in. I mean, they're probably no different than a dog, I suppose, but here we are. We're adding more responsibility to how do we maintain or, you know, take care of these things. You know, and it's always going to fall back to the police department, usually if there's a complaint. And then it's more of a civil matter between the two neighbors on how things are controlled, just like in most anything else. And so, like I say, I go back to the last time we brought up, we even had third graders up here one time, and we had the third grade kids talk about chickens. And they actually had almost a better conversation than what we did. It was amazing how well the third graders spoke and gave options about the chickens. And when the kids that were in our positions voted on the chickens, they voted it down. I was amazed. I was standing there, I was like, these kids are incredible on the topics and how they brought opinions to it. So I don't know. That's where I'm coming from. That's just, you know, the general public that called me was more against than for. So I mean, I understand the reasoning for, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, when you bring up the cost, that doesn't make any sense to me because you're going to put. I just saw one out there at Tractor Supply. I think it was $250 for a chicken coop. It was a small one. You know, like, man, I could buy a lot.
They're cute though.
I could buy a lot of eggs for $250.
I mean, there's pros and cons with anything when you look at it, but ultimately, like, a dog, we all have dogs, I have 3 dogs, I'll say that, but what's the benefit of a dog besides companionship? And a lot of people have the same thing with chickens. Chickens actually can provide meat, they can provide eggs, some people actually like pet chickens. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to that too. I have a neighbor across the street that has a German Shepherd that barks 24 hours a day. I deal with it. 4 a.m. I'm getting woke up by a dog bark. It is what it is. If you have a limit on and a permit with chickens, they can have maybe 5 and no roosters. What's really going to happen? What noise is happening? How is it bothering our neighbors? I pay over $4 a dozen for an eggs right now at the grocery store because I do farm. That's just a different insight.
Sure. I've only ever gotten calls from people or inquiries about it who want chickens in the city. I've never heard from a person who didn't want them.
All the calls I've had are from people, who want chickens. I've never had one person say they didn't want one. I'm not opposed to it, looking into it further. I think there has to be some restrictions, but I mean, I know there's super annoying dogs in my neighborhood that are a lot louder than chickens. So, and if people didn't, you know, people who walk their dogs and their dogs crap in my yard smell a lot worse than chickens from the neighbor. Now, if people picked up after their dogs, it'd be different, but they don't all the time, so.
And we don't want like everyone to have like 10, 20, like 5 or 6. That would be like
It's
a
not like a
reasonable
poultry
limit.
farm.
Exactly.
Like it's a couple of chickens.
And like what Danny said, there was quite a big discussion years ago with all the council and the citizens, and I even had quite a few, I only say a few, but I had quite a few on the clerk's list that it was a topic of discussion in all the different cities, and the ones that I kept all turned down, but because of the smell and it was just not a good situation. So, but I might go back out and check to see how many have changed, because it is quite a topic. But at the time, nobody really wanted it here when it was brought up years ago.
The gardens that we donated property.
Giving Gardens.
Giving Gardens. Is that all belong to them? Is there a piece of property that people can, if they want chickens, they could go to like there and keep their chickens there?
I mean, that's like saying, well, if you want to have a dog, you have to go to the dog park and pet it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to.
have a chicken park.
Chicken. We can put it next to the dog park. There's Mark Green.
Chicken park.
I mean, there's several like other cities that we can look at their ordinance. I know like South Bend, Fort Wayne, Terre Haute, that's just a couple of the cities that have approved it. And I mean, some of them don't even have, like, you know, as many as you want chickens. Some have roosters allowed too. So there is other options out there, so we can kind of model what we would actually.
We could even potentially pilot this with a couple of people or something and see how it goes.
Well, I think a lot of it depends where they live. I mean.
There could be like a minimum square footage
Yeah.
of your property.
Yeah, so,
I mean,
you know.
then, like, if you were in an apartment, you couldn't really.
So we currently do for, let's say specifically, not that this is a one-for-one comparison, but in the ordinance, in 90.10, looks like section maybe C6, it says potbelly pigs and pygmy goats shall be allowed only on a lot with a minimum of 2 acres of land for each individual animal. So again, there's some precedent of saying you have to have X amount of square footage in order to whatever. Now, at the end of the day, it still comes down to someone has got to check to see if they're within that square footage and things to that effect. But at the end of the day, I do think it's valuable for us, and I say us collectively, but you know, you guys are the legislative body, but at the end of the day, I think it is valuable for us to go to the constituency and to really get input from them in whatever manner you believe to be appropriate. And certainly, you know, I think it was maybe my first term that we actually took this under consideration as the council. And since then, there has been a lot of other communities,
A lot between
yes,
now
that
and
have taken on this ordinance and have grown in the urban farming, if you will, and certainly allowing urban chickens, if you will. So, but I guess my point of saying all that is there is precedent, not only in the keeping of bees and potbelly pigs and pygmy goats and others, to kind of create a special exception for this kind of animal to have this certain kind, and it's a, you know, maybe it's a no roosters and you have to have a coop of some sort or something like that, right? So again, ultimately, that's up to you as the city council as setting those legislative laws. But I do think it's valuable to reach out to our constituency and find out what they really want.
Yeah, I think that there's still room to, again, talk to people, see how other places are doing it, because I really wasn't in tune to talk about this topic tonight. But if it's working somewhere, what are they doing? And are we similar or are we different? But at the end of the day, Gary's group is still going to be the ones who police it. Or the fire department might want to have hose practice.
They go up a tree.
But I'm just saying, I think it's a good topic to talk about. I agree. Things have changed. I mean, look where we've been, you know, with change. Golf carts, dramatic change.
UTV, RTVs, yeah.
You know, so I'm not saying that we can't be flexible or if we find something that's middle of the road, but I think it's, we just still need some time to evaluate is it good for Columbia City, is it fit Columbia City, and is it being a good neighbor to your neighbors.
I don't know why you're all looking at me. What would you like to do from here to there?
I don't know, I'm curious what the process is, because normally when we change things, it goes through ordinance committee.
Sure. Well, at the end of the day, and please understand, I'm not trying to downplay the ordinance review committee, but at the end of the day, the council is the one that's charged with setting ordinances in the city of Columbia City and every other city, for the record. So if the council has an interest in creating an ordinance specifically for chickens, then it shall be created, and then you shall vote on it, or you may vote on it, I guess. So it really is up to you of what route you want to take from here to there. Certainly, Marcia, as our city attorney, can write any ordinance that fits within state law to do what you want to do. So I don't know, Marcia, do you have any thoughts or comments about the process per se, but
Not
you know,
really. I mean, there's, the primary things that I'd need to know for a first draft would be, is it gonna be permits, no permits, roosters, no roosters? Do they have to have a pen, free range up, you know, or free range? those are the main things that I would need to know for an ordinance like that, to just put it on the table for you all to then discuss. Because otherwise, it's hard for me to create that ordinance. If you don't really want permitting, then tell me that, so I know not to put that whole process in. But those would be, if I'm thinking about it, it'd be roosters, permitting, and the type of pen type of thing. And the numbers, of course, the numbers. Those four main things would be a really good start for me to know how to draft, start with the draft.
And frankly, if it's the prerogative of this council to send it to ordinance review committee and say, no, we want you to draft an ordinance about this, you certainly can do that as well. It is that ordinance review committee is a subcommittee of this council. It is not an executive committee. It is a legislative committee. So, again, it's really up to you to define what route you want to take from here to there. Certainly, you can go directly through Marcia. She can draft it up. You can have someone spearhead it. You can send it back to the committee with some directives. You can create a subcommittee of two of you to start writing it and work with Marcia on it. I mean, there's lots of routes to get to the same end. So,
I just want to make a comment to your earlier comment, Mayor. I think that once it gets to this level, it's sort of, now it's up to you to really, so I sort of agree with your first comment on this.
Yep.
It's sort of past that review. As long as I've got sort of those elements, then you can debate it here back at council.
So what would be the best way to get more citizens' input, whether or not they want to go forward with it or if they're against it?
Do you want to do a poll?
I'm more than happy to put a poll out if you would like. I will say typically, polls will bring the most vocal of our community out for that. But with that being said, that's not necessarily a bad way to at least judge kind of what the percentage is out there. Obviously, I'd want to make sure that I would write it in such a way that doesn't show any bias one way or another and just ask, some different ideas. I think if you're going to go out and try to get information from the public, I'd want to know specifically in a poll, it's fine, of figuring out what kind of information do you want. How, I would ask, first of all, are you a city resident? And if you are, this isn't a survey for you. Second of all, how many chickens do you think is appropriate, or how many chickens would, maybe second of all, if this were allowed, would you take advantage of this? Third, if it were allowed, how many chickens would you, something like that. But I'd want, obviously, I'm assuming Jennifer and or Jenny or whoever can help craft what those questions are. But obviously, I'd want to try to keep it as unbiased as possible to get it out there to get true feedback. But I guess, another method could be certainly as you're out and about, whatever, talking to your friends, your constituents, whoever out there, just mentioning it and getting their feedback. Because honestly, the press is probably going to write something about this conversation because it's a good story. And you may just automatically get some feedback. And maybe it's something where if you're asking the press to put some information out about getting feedback on that, I think there's
We'll get feedback on this, but we don't get feedback when we go, spend $500,000 somewhere else.
Sure, right.
Well,
It's no
we'll
different than
get
the sled
feedback on
hill.
chickens.
It's our golf carts. There are certain topics that.
Yeah, we'll get feedback on
Put
chickens.
leashes on the chicken.
Well, we buy Gary 5 new police cars, holy crap.
Yeah. I think that's actually, I did think about how would we know whose chicken is whose with leashes or something, but.
Do they have like chicken collars like they do on dogs?
You can put sweaters on them.
There you go. Chicken sweaters, I like it.
I think you can even buy stuff to walk your chicken right over at TSC.
So again, if it is the council's prerogative, I would be more than happy to put together a poll and get that out on social media and get feedback.
I think we need a poll.
Okay.
Let's do that.
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Do you want Jenny and I to work on some questions?
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
I don't have any problem putting the actual poll online and putting all the structure together, but the questions I would really love to come from the council. So,
Dan, do you want to look at it too, since I know you're the one, you actually have more experience with this and people were against it before. That way it's completely unbiased. Do you want to input?
Wonderful.
Any other thing from the council on this matter? Okay, so I think we have a general game plan of moving forward to kind of figure out what the constituents want. Certainly understand there may be others that want to give verbal input, and so encourage residents, whether they're here or whether they're listening in Facebook land or I guess later on YouTube, to contact council members through email or whatever other means and give input on this matter. Anything else? Okay, anything else from the department heads?
Are we able to say anything now, since we're here?
If you, yeah, in a minute. I'll go through and then we'll hit public here at the end. So yes, absolutely. Marcia.
Nothing.
Rosie.
Nothing. I'll have my first round with the tax commissions Thursday. So to get a little rough idea where we're at.
Great. And hopefully we're where we think we're going to be. Appreciate the budget meetings we've been having, and again, we'll bring that budget up. I think you said in September, no, 13th of September. That'll come in front of you all. The next 2 days, I will be out of town at Indiana Conference of Mayors. I actually started today, but I wanted to be with you so bad I stayed, and we'll be going tomorrow morning. So what? No, I couldn't cancel a third council meeting. Okay. So I will be out the next 2 days. US 30 Coalition still moving forward. The actual plan, the planning and environmental linkage study is moving forward now. There's conversations being had there, as I understand. So that's good stuff. We did. I'll just rip the Band-Aid off on this for a moment. Chip and I had a meeting with our engineers regarding Westgate, and the next, I guess, 3, we thought it'd be 2, it's gonna have to be 3 because of Van Buren Street. Phases, the pricing came in and are exorbitantly high because of the work that's gonna need to be done, so we've already started reaching out, I've already started reaching out to some of our state partners and trying to find out what, if any, funding sources are out there besides community crossings. Community crossings will obviously pay for the streets and drainage and stuff, that's great, except that only covers 1.3 million per phase, if you will, okay? The initial estimate for the rest of this project is $11 million. Okay, so yes, that is the face I made as well. So I say that for a couple of reasons. Number one is, now keep in mind, 1.3 million, that's 300,000 of ours, $1 million of theirs, give or take. And that would be for each of the 3 phases. So we could get roughly, 3 million of those $11 million. But really, material costs, labor costs, obviously petroleum costs, things like that have really escalated the project pretty significantly. We are reaching out to find out what the federal infrastructure package and what potential dollars may be there, because this is an infrastructure project. It's all infrastructure. So we're trying to find those mediums and those opportunities. It was sticker shock for us too, and I'm still mourning those numbers. So we'll continue to try to figure out how we can fund that. And again, now you have sticker shock as well. So. Coming up next week, I have a meeting with our state senator just to kind of go through some upcoming session stuff, and I'm not touching this previous session with a 10-foot pole, so I am focused on what the next session is to come, what kind of legislation. It's actually sort of our previous senator. It's Senator Zay, who is sort of kind of our senator, but not really anymore because we're changing districts. So anyways, but he said he'll continue to represent us because he loves Whitley County, of course. So we continue moving forward on lots of different projects. In Board of Works, we had multiple street and curb and sidewalk cuts that came from SURF. You noticed that they were out there.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, so please be patient with that. It is good work, it just is a matter of getting it done and all the technicalities of that. We also are working on a property that's been effectively abandoned that has tens of thousands of dollars worth of back taxes and other things that they just can't get off the rolls. So the Board of Works is working on how to dispose potentially of that property and get it back onto a tax-paying structure. So I think that's probably enough for today. Good luck to all the students who are going back to school next week. Walt?
No, sir.
Dan?
I need to give it, Kelly, with the naming of the street, East Swihart and South Raver Road. I need to get with you and find out where that actually stops. We got some houses on the north side of South Raver Road. It's all addressed as such, but the Swihart Street goes all the way out there. And so when 911 calls, we got some issues, and I just had to give an address out there, and I was going to give it a Swihart Street address, and I looked at all the other houses, and they're all South Raver Road. They're all in town. So I need to get with you at some point to figure out, I can see where the cities stopped their paving and the county started, but that's not where the street names are. I think it was annexed at one time and nobody switched the addresses, so it could be a situation for 911 when it comes up, because they might even give a Swihart Street address with the property's actually a South Raver Road. So I'm trying to figure that one out, so I need to get with you to try to figure out, because otherwise they got about 7 or 8 addresses that are addressed off of South Raver Road, but we call it Swihart, so people, you know, it's just a little confusing for 911 and me as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, wasn't sure what to give that guy an address and street name. So I'll show you what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I have nothing.
Tad?
Nothing.
Jenny?
Nothing.
Press?
Obviously, you guys just talked about it, but ballpark when the poll might be out, like a week, 2 weeks?
I'm guessing next week.
Sure.
Ish. I know this week is packed the rest of the week for me, plus I'm out of town the next 2 days, so I don't see it happening this week, but probably next week if I can get the materials from my friends on the council. Yeah, thank you. Public comment. Come on up, and I need name and address, please.
My name is Melanie Love, and I'm at 113 East Market Street. So in regards to chickens, I would say I understand if you got negative complaints. It's human nature to complain a lot more than we say positive things. We've spent a lot of studies about that. It's why Facebook is so toxic. Everyone has a negative opinion, but not everyone's willing to voice their positive. And I'm sorry that you had to feel those complaints. So I'm sure it's not pleasant. I would say that being a good neighbor is an important thing, and I think that there's room in there to balance both things. For starters, I would also mention that HOAs exist for things like this. Like, I want my lawn pristine, and I don't want someone's, weeds or wildflowers or chickens or whatever near my pristine lawn. That's fine. But for the rest of the people that don't live in an HOA, it's kind of just be a good neighbor, and most of us like that we have that freedom to kind of do our own thing. I believe very strongly that everyone should have the opportunity to live their life as much as it's not bothering someone else. I have like a quarter of an acre, and I got parking lots on either side. Nobody cares if I have chickens, except for ordinances. And I think that this is super, super important now more than ever, because with grocery prices being high, but also just insecurity. I mean, like a month ago, Walmart had a power outage and lost all their refrigerated stuff. They tossed a whole bunch of stuff. Things like that can happen. A natural disaster could come along and take things out, shipping problems, whatever. Being able to rely on your own food is something that shouldn't only be a benefit of living outside of neighbor's permission, or, having so much land or whatever, that I think a blanket no is always a bad idea. I mean, almost always a bad idea to just blanket no almost anything. That case-by-case basis are really a good plan. Like Ted said, dogs, especially someone living in town, dogs can be especially frustrating. And there's no recourse if someone's dog, dumps on my lawn. I can't do anything about that. And there's no me enforcing a fine or anything like that. Whereas if someone's not following chicken rules, we could enforce fines and things like that, which admittedly is probably not going to be a lot of revenue, but it's something. It's a small amount that might make it less of an issue for those who have to enforce those kinds of things. You could also potentially do, like we do with garage sales, where you have to have a permit and it's a small amount. And they've done studies and found that when you give away free kittens, people don't care. They don't treasure the kittens as much as when you charge someone even $1 or $5 for a kitten. It's that ownership where you love something and you care about it because you had to give something to get it. So I think you might find that even like $1 makes people care because they've put their own sweat into something, and hopefully they'll take better care of it. And lastly, I just wanted to mention about the chicken coops, because some of them are amazing and expensive and crazy. Chicken coops are like houses and cars. I mean, you can have a house that's really amazing, but you can also have some pretty drunk ones that'll still, do what they need to do. The chicken coops are kind of the same. You can build your own chicken coop pretty cheap, and it's still reasonable and decent and functional. It doesn't have to be an eyesore. That's just kind of my 2 cents.
Questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Name and address, please.
My name is Kim Gavin. I'm at 302 East Van Buren Street. And I'd just like to kind of go along with what Melanie had to say about being good neighbors. I think having chickens in town would be absolutely amazing. Especially with like community growth and helping your neighbors. Nothing like needing an egg and you don't have it and you have to cross the road to go and get it. I would love to be able to just rely on my neighbors a little bit more and ask them for things like that. I also think it's great for our kids who do live in town, who can't necessarily join 4-H and have the opportunity to take care of something like that, to be able to teach and educate. We have our community garden for kids to learn about gardening, but nothing for us to be able to teach them how to take care of an animal in that particular way. I just think when we talk about inconveniences, us in town, I feel like we're always kind of inconvenienced with something. First Fridays is amazing, but when you live in town, you don't have anywhere to park. So I feel like if we can look past some of those other inconveniences, we can look past maybe hearing a chicken cock or whatever. Last thing I want to say is that I would be more than willing to help with any sort of outreach and asking my neighbors. I have plenty of neighbors who are definitely for it and willing to sign petitions or whatnot. Melanie and I were actually talking about this not too long ago about trying to start something to get this moving, and we found out it was being talked about today, so we were really excited. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause? Hearing none, we will adjourn. Thank you.
I got it ready to go.
Marcia.
Jennifer, I